Yeah, they said they're okay. So is there anyone here now who can see me? Because it says I have 0 viewers and links, and I will send out the. Turn it down. Okay, so it clearly works. Hooray! So that is just an amazing uh, change of events. Yeah, exactly. Well, that's actually the Mariah Carey issue. So because whenever the speakers are pointing in the directions they do inside of a live concert, what you're hearing are the echoes and reverberations. So like you don't know where the song actually is. It's just like this big white wall of noise. That's also the reason why like there keeps being these controversies about like singers who are not singing, and I'm like, no singer actually sings because they can't. Like it's just like you can't run around and jump around and dance and also sing. Like go ahead and try it. Try running like just down the block and try singing with any sort of cadence. It's going to be choppy and messy, and like you're not going to be singing pitch perfect. Yeah, exactly. You got to pay very close attention to your breathing, to your everything. So the idea that someone can do that and yeah, exactly, and do all that other garbage that does not strike me as realistic. So I always think that's kind of a funny thing when people are like, oh, they've been caught lip syncing. It's like, please, they're all lip syncing. None of them are doing that. None of them are actually doing that. Do we still live in a world where people think that happens? All right. So I set up a link in the general chat room. This is my GIST. So if we haven't covered GIST before, they're basically repos in GitHub that are much smaller. So they don't have as many features. They don't have the issue tracking and a lot of other stuff, but they're super great for just writing down code. Thank you, Blur. They're super great for just being able to write down code. And most importantly is this little link right over here. Whenever you click it down, you can clone via SSH or HTTPS. So you can copy that link to your clipboard, or you can just download the zip. It's a lot better to clone it though. And the reason why is because this code doesn't all work, or at least not yet. And that's because this is transferring MySQL code to Postgres code. And so because of that, a lot of the stuff I haven't checked out yet, but at least a large portion of it does work. So over time, I'm going to keep adding to it. I'm going to keep fixing it because there are a lot of like very subtle differences between how Postgres works and how MySQL works. MySQL chose like the JavaScript approach to programming, and that means being as light and friendly and easy as possible. The downside to the JavaScript approach is, you know, of course, I've demonstrated this before, but stuff like this, right? If you want to be super friendly to your users, then you're going to also get problems with conversions, or you're going to get bugs like this, where 1 + 1 = 11, which of course it does. And that's how MySQL chose it. Postgres went the opposite extreme, and they basically said, hey, we're going to make this as strict as possible. You're not going to get away. This is not a language for you, you know, avant-garde programmers. This is for the real programmers out there. So because of that, like there's a lot of like type conversions and other things that you have to do. Anyway, I got my PyCharm opened up, and we already went over all the import statements and everything else. So hopefully everyone's got all the tables, right? Thumbs. Oh no. Well, we're gonna actually run the commands. So basically, the idea here is to actually get. I think we ran like these three, which is like Oh, is it not sharing? I thought it was sharing my screen. Oh no, it's not on there. Ah, we now have the infinite loop. This thing isn't even on really, so try to turn that off. I can't actually broadcast to this thing because the only thing you're going to see is you're going to see that, because this network I can't get log on to here to do a broadcast from my YouTube channel. Basically, I would have to own No IP's YouTube channel, and nice as Dan is, I don't think he's going to give me yeah, I don't think he's going to give me root access to the entire company, as groovy as that would be. So can you see this though? Can you guys actually see what's going on the stream? So yeah, we ran. Yeah. So basically at the bottom here, if you run multiple selects, then what will happen is that each of these different selects will be held in a tab. So when I selected one, it just has this column right there because I haven't actually aliased it as anything. So it's just like, well, that's a column of some sort. But if I do this, I don't think it likes that very much. Let's see if it'll actually let me get away with that. It won't because this is Postgres. I keep forgetting. Postgres wants it like that. That's one of the syntactic things about Postgres. Double quotes have a special meaning, and so do single quotes. In most of the other SQL databases, whether you choose double quotes or single quotes doesn't actually matter, but for Postgres it does. Double quotes mean you want to reference some sort of column name, and single quotes mean you want to reference a string literal. So if I do this one right here, which is select something as something, there's the name of the table or the column row right there, and then something is the actual value returned. If I try to reference it like this, though, it should get mad at me. Dun, dun, dun. I will deal with that. So yeah, let's see if it'll let me get away with this. I don't think it will. It looks, nope, it doesn't. So here using the double quotes, that tries to say like there is no column called something. So in Postgres, it has a very specific meaning whether you're using double quotes or single quotes. Are you trying to reference a column or a column name, or are you trying to reference a string literal? You just want to see all the different column names. There is from the Postgres terminal. Doing this YouTube live hanging is like hanging up my computer pretty bad. I'm surprised. Anything else running? I have nothing else running. Spotify. Bad Spotify. Bad mail. Bad unsecure keys. Okay. Yeah, there is a way to generate that using a select statement. More commonly, what you'll see is, let me see if I got the Postgres app somewhere. I did not install the Postgres app on this computer. Dun, dun, dun. Let's see if I can get it from the terminal. Yeah. Huzzah. Let me go look this one up. Postgres uses these Postgres terminal show all tables. Postgres kind of has these like really bizarre commands from the terminal that you have to run. Yeah, there we go. /DT is the command, and you have to be running inside of Postgres. If you have Postgres installed the way we installed it, which is using the Postgres app, then you just click the app and it'll launch you into the actual terminal. If you're doing it like I am, which I had the wrong thing there, no relations found. Oh, wrong. Those are Linux commands, /list. There we go. So right now it's listing out all my databases, and this works in MySQL. I haven't tested this with Postgres, but if I say use world, it's not gonna let me get away with that. /connect world. Get away with that. Here we go. So yeah, it uses these bizarre / commands. So it doesn't use the traditional like select all from city. If you use MySQL, it actually has a very special set of things called information schema. So you would do it like this: select all from information schema, where name equals world, and that would show you everything inside the world database. Postgres doesn't do that. So like you can do it, but this is the problem with all the SQL databases. They all evolved long before there were standards. So each one of them had their own like special way of doing things. And then when the standards came out, like in the 80s, everyone was like, we've already have like 1 million customers and we've already written all the codes. So we'll think about that later. And thus far, there's actually not a single fully compliant database out there. Every single one of them deviates from the standard in some way. So like your very basic commands, like select all from city, that works the same across them. But as soon as you start getting into the more complicated stuff, each one of them like has their own idea of how it should be done. So to actually get these things inside your database, make sure that what you do is you do your Git clone and the name of that repository, my little gist here. Copy that. Exit. Oh yeah. Oh, I quit. Q. You're going to want to run this Git Clone command, and that's going to create the repository. Since that name is terrible, you're probably going to want to call it something like Postgres Sandbox. It's a pretty typical name. You'll see that actually alias it as Postgres Sandbox because 36CEB8404 just isn't that great of a name for a repository. And that's one of the differences between using a GIST versus using a an actual GitHub repo. Say again? Yeah, you can do that as well. The most common thing if you want to rename stuff is on a Linux system is to do MV. So then you would name like Postgres Sandbox and you would say move that to new sandbox. You ls that. ls new sandbox. There it is. Yeah. Well, it'll rename it. It's one of those strange Linux things, and that's because the rename command doesn't always work the way people want it to. So it's very common whenever you ask people how do you do a rename, they'll say MV, thing you want to move, and that. So you have to be in a directory, and you have to MV it to something that's not another directory in that directory, correct? Yeah. I haven't actually tried doing a conflicting thing, so let's go ahead and I'll go into my sites. There we go. I will make a dir. I probably already have a foo directory because that's usually what I call stuff because I'm like most programmers. I'm not good at names. There it is. I already have a foo. So I'm gonna make dir some dir. I'm gonna move some dir in foo. SLHA cd foo. Yeah. So now it just puts some dir as a subdirectory of foo. So yeah, you have to make sure it doesn't already exist. Niece? What the hell was that? Yeah. RMDir isn't going to work. I think it's actually removed. Yeah, it's removed dir. Yeah. RMDir doesn't work if there is something inside the directory. Yep. Yeah, so if you wanted to actually remove that, put it with this rm-rf and then name a directory you want to remove. And then that says do it recursively and then force it to happen. Because basically once there's something in it, it wants to make sure like you don't just go willy-nilly deleting stuff. And part of that is because when you use this command, it doesn't go to the trash box. It just completely wipes from your system. That's it, you're done. So there's no like saving grace if you use the Linux terminal for these sort of stuff. So in order to prevent programmers from making terrible life decisions, they try to make sure that you know what you're doing. And of course, everyone's favorite is that, which is the remove everything starting at root. That's like the hacker command they tell you to run, because as soon as you do that, it'll start deleting important files. If you do it like this, it probably won't do anything because then you're going to be locked out of it. But if you do the sudo rmrf, that's like the danger zone command. There's also something called the Unix fork bomb, and that's this obscure looking command. And basically, it just keeps constantly creating a function and calling it, and then creating another function and calling it infinitely. So it never leaves what's known as the stack. And that just means that eventually you get Stack Overflow, and that's where you get the name Stack Overflow from. So yeah, that was a programmer joke on their part. In fact, I actually put up a in the general link here. Yeah, this little Lambda in action. So if you actually want to see how programming kind of works underneath the hood, here I have like a function. I define, I say it's going to be first name. It's a string. It returns a string of some sort. Last name is Smith, and then show name equals a lambda. And this lambda is first name, middle name, etc. And then it actually calls show full name, and it stores that in full, and then it prints it out, and then it just returns it. But if you actually step through this, oops, not all the way through, but if you go back to the beginning and you just step through it line by line, you get a global frame here, and this is called heap. So basically, this is memory that stays persistent throughout the lifetime of your program from start to execution. Stack memory is temporary memory. It tries to throw it away as much as possible. But then as you go through it, you get another stack here, another little frame. You keep running through it to it, and it starts adding stuff onto the frame. So Stack Overflow error is like when you added so much stuff in here that like there's no more memory. So it just crashes your computer. And that's the fork bomb in process. But once it gets through, it should reach the point where I actually return out of there. So you can see a little line over here. So that's the next line to be executed. As it goes through, once it hits the end there, it releases this from memory. So basically it says like, I don't need that anymore. So it's constantly trying to look for if it needs to hold on to something. And if it doesn't, it releases it for what's known as garbage collection. And that's whenever the machine says like, all the stuff that I have like lying around, you can go ahead and clean it up. And the big debates in programming, if you do like C or C++, they don't have that that concept of dynamic memory. You have to manually assign memory. This is also true of Objective-C. And the reason why is that Steve Jobs said that whenever it came to garbage collection, what happens whenever it does garbage collection, you may even notice this occasionally. You're sitting around on your laptop, you're not doing anything, and all of a sudden the fan starts whirring. And then all of a sudden your computer slows down for a period of time and you're like, what in the heck is going on? Did my computer just get possessed? No, that's what garbage collection does. Is it goes through, it boots it up, it looks for anything it can throw away, it throws away, then your computer settles down and says, all right, I'm good. And Steve Jobs said, I don't want that for a phone. I don't want your phone to get hot and suddenly just freeze up on you. That's going to be terrible. So Objective-C didn't have any way to just assign random memory, have a garbage collection. You had to manually assign and deassign memory. So when you were through something, you had to literally say like, deallocate that memory that I was using right there. And I want to allocate 10 bytes of memory for this function. So it's super efficient. The problem is it leads to all sorts of problems because humans aren't very good at that sort of mental math. So in the version 8 of it or so, of the IDE, which is Xcode, they actually came up with the idea of dynamic memory allocation, which is that the compiler looks at your code and the computer tells you how much memory you need. So you no longer yourself manually assign it and deassign it. The computer figures it all out for you. Sort of like magic. If you had told anyone in the 1980s that a computer could do that, that would have been like witchcraft. But that's where we're at with computers right now. But anyway, that's what this shows you is that if you can create functions, you can see them like get allocated, you can see them get deallocated whenever they're grayed out like that, because now that's no longer needed. Then we get this blue frame, that's the next stack that's going to get created. So this Python tutor is really fun if you just want to throw some code in there, see what it does, and play around with it. Good stuff. All right. So for the Postgres, sort of commands here, the one downside is that if you're using the Postgres app, I don't think you have pSQL available from the command line. So just try going to your terminal and typing in pSQL, like I did right there, and seeing if it boots you into the shell. Yeah, because you have it on the Linux machine. The problem there is you're now going to have to connect through that port in order to actually see it in the IDE. Yeah, because basically that's a self-contained Linux box, and so it has to set up its own ports and its own forwarding, and it's set up its own like URL for it basically. So, and which is going to be an IP address. It's going to be something like 10.17.234. One of the things that I really like, I will quit. Oh yeah. Anyway, so do you guys have pSQL? Can you type that command in and get a response, or does it just say not found? Pretty sure it's going to say not found. Oh yeah, but see on your terminal, on your command prompt, basically, if you can type in pSQL, if it lets you get into it. I don't know on the Windows install if it installs the command line tools. And you're on Windows too. All right. So what you have to do is the fun stuff. So basically, for those of you who are on pgadmin, you have to boot it up. You actually all should have. We went over this in class. I know that I installed this on your computer in particular. I don't know about yours. So I'm gonna have to like have a boring hangout and just kind of like take my thing off and see like what you got on your computer. So interlude. Let's see what we got. So pSQL, yeah, so it doesn't install that. That's lame. So pgadmin. So did you set up Vagrant and you see something? You haven't set up Vagrant? Vagrant on Macs is pretty easy. Vagrant on Windows can be really painful because each Windows operating, like each different Windows thing, gets its own choice about how it wants to handle virtualization. So you have to go like fiddling with configuration files. It is like a huge pain to get done. But yeah, pop open pgadmin. You should have a database called world in there under the schemas. That should be it. Okay, cool. So you're actually good to go. You gotta check on yours.
I don't just see it when I pull up the file stuff. When I clone everything, it still has all the stuff to create it. It's because they already created it.
If you're talking about in the Git repo, like if you CD'd into that?
Yeah.
Oh, those are just the raw SQL statements. Like those are just so anyone can clone this and actually just run the commands. Duh, so your user post the rest, whatever password you put in there. So we got databases. You got the world database. Yeah. No, you're good to go. You got all this stuff. So yeah, everyone is good to go, at least on this side.
If I
What are yours?
/D,
Go to your
got a
PG
bunch of questions.
files or tables?
Go to pgadmin.
Actually,
Oh, you're on
running,
Linux.
yeah, running the Linux, and
You guys
It
have much
times me.
fun.
yeah, it turns me out trying to run Vagrant up. It goes over to 300 seconds, and I'm wondering because I'm already running a virtual machine, so we have a virtual box inside
The virtual box, which only has a small amount of memory allocated to it. So yeah, that's probably the issue. Go to your Windows machine. We didn't install this stuff.
Nope.
So you don't have pgadmin on there?
No.
Been pgadmin? Yeah, so you don't have. So type in pgadmin inside of inside of your browser. Yep.
I don't know if this matters, but when I /T or D the database, when I'm connected to world, it says